Hello and welcome to today's Microsoft Teams Week webinar. My name is Ella and I'm delighted to be joined by Kat Grennan, Core United Kingdom, for today's webinar, who'll be talking to you about Teams as a platform, 5 apps to improve your Teams collaboration. Remember to join the conversation about today's webinar on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @EuropeanSP and our hashtag is ESPC21. And don't forget to check out the Resource Centre. The Resource Centre is updated daily with the latest blogs, ebooks and webinars. Simply visit sharepointeurope.com/resource centre and click the content link on the top menu. We'd like to give a big shout out to our Microsoft Teams Week supporter, Veeam, for joining us for this exciting week. Veeam are also giving you the chance to win one of 2 €100 Amazon vouchers. You can win by submitting your raffle registration on the page showed on the screen or by scanning the QR code. There will be 2 winners. The first winner will be randomly selected from the list of people attending Veeam's webinar on Thursday, 8 Microsoft Teams backup facts you need to know. The second winner will be randomly selected from the entire list of Microsoft Teams registrations. And don't miss your chance to secure 2 for 1 on 4-day tickets for ESPC 22 tomorrow. For more information, visit SharePoint Europe /ESPC 22 2 for 1 sale. Later on today, we have another webinar, Building Beautiful Teams Apps, Teams UI Toolkit for Makers. Just join us at 2 p.m. CET later on. After the webinar, we will have a question and answer session. Type any questions you may have into the question window. We will select questions at the end of the presentation to be answered. This webinar will be recorded and you'll be notified by email once it is available. Now I'm going to pass you over to our webinar presenter today, Kat. Good morning, Kat. How are you today?
Good morning. I am very good, thank you. Very good. Thank you so much for having me on the session today. Just to double check, you can see my screen all right?
Yeah, you can see your PowerPoint screen. Perfect.
I'm going to take that as a yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. So hi everyone, thank you so much for having me on the session today. So today I'm going to be talking about Teams as a platform, 5 apps to improve your Teams collaboration. Now, before I start, I did just want to introduce your speaker for today. So my name is Kat Grennan and I'm a Microsoft Solutions Specialist at a UK-based Microsoft Gold partner called Core. I specialise in Microsoft Teams and frequently speak at conferences all around the globe on all things Teams because I love it. And I also have a blog called collabwithkat.com. Now, the blog shares tips and tricks on using Microsoft Teams. Don't worry if you're not too technical, the blog is end user friendly, so please feel free to check that out for more help and support with Teams. I am also a podcast host on a technical podcast called Cloud Conversations. Please feel free to search us on YouTube if you wanted to give that a watch. We talk about all things Microsoft 365 and Teams. And on the right-hand side of the screen, I did just want to share some of my contact details. I'm on LinkedIn. If you search for Kat Grennan, I'm also on Twitter. My handle is @GrennanCat. I tend to share updates, new things that are happening in Teams, share the blog on there, so please feel free to follow if you want to. So what are we going to talk about today? A couple of things really. So first of all, what is Teams as a platform? Let's find out what I mean. What are the different types of applications that we can add into Teams, because there are a few different types and they do use different technology. So we'll run through that today. In terms of the 5 apps that we're going to look at, I've included a bit of a mixture using different types of applications and different types of technology. Again, I'll explain it all as we go through, but the 5 applications we're going to look at is 1, the Company Communicator app, Decisions, Polling with Microsoft Forms, Tasks with Planner, but we're going to do a little twist on that and include adaptive cards. And we're going to look at a bot example as well, something called the HR bots, to show you how we can kind of customize and pull in business processes using bots in Microsoft Teams. So a few bits to cover in there, and hopefully by the end of the session, you'll have a greater understanding of how you can extend the capability of Teams and see the art of the possible. What are the different types of applications that we can look to include? Now, of course, these are just 5 examples of applications that I've chosen based on ones that I've used before and that I particularly like. They have different use cases, again, which we'll go through, but there are quite a few different applications for lots and lots of different use cases. So I'll send some links as well after the session so you can check out, all the different applications that are available. But these are just my top 5. So before I dive into the applications then, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Teams maturity curve. So most customers that we work with and most organizations will really start with chat and meetings. So really it's the basics of using Microsoft Teams. Then maybe they'll allow, a couple of external applications, then eventually start looking at things like Power Platform, exploring how to connect, existing solutions, and then finally bringing some of those homegrown line of business solutions into Teams. But here's the key. Almost everyone starts here at the basics, which is fine. But when you start there, you will likely hear your people say things like, I already have apps, I need to get work done, I don't need another tool. And so what we really need to get your people to see is what's possible. And the vast majority, sometimes won't understand the value of Microsoft Teams from day one by just using the basics. It's really about extending the capability of Teams and bringing in, better innovation. And one of the key things is a lot of organizations will start from the basics, but really if you start from the top, simplification, bringing in business processes into Teams, bringing in homegrown line of business solutions into Teams, that's where the real innovation is, and that's where the real value is. So the higher up on this kind of maturity curve that you get to, the more value that you will realize faster in Microsoft Teams. And really, how do we do that? Well, we do that with apps. And there are different types of applications which are used and supported with different technology in Teams. So when we talk about Teams as a platform, we're talking about extending the capability of Teams, making it do more than just be a place to share files, have conversations and meetings. We can go a step further. Now, the different types of applications that you have in Microsoft Teams. One is the Microsoft apps. So you have the common Microsoft 365 applications that you get as part of your licensing. So you'll have OneDrive, Office, Word, Power BI, Planner, OneNote. All of these applications you might be very familiar with. These are first-party applications. There are 45 of those applications available in Microsoft 365 that your users can go in and add and integrate into Microsoft Teams. So that is your first kind of bunch of applications, first-party Microsoft apps. We then have third-party apps. So these are applications that have been created by other companies and partners, and Microsoft have partnered up with these companies to bring their applications into Microsoft Teams. So there's things like SurveyMonkey, there's YouTube, there's Salesforce, there's Twitter, and so on. Now, these third-party applications are not owned by Microsoft. They do have their own kind of terms of use and terms and conditions, and some of them do come at additional cost. So some of them might require a subscription. For example, you have like Adobe. If you want to bring Adobe into Teams, you need to buy Adobe licensing before you can do that. It actually says 500 available. I need to change that because it's over 800 available now. So there's over 800 third-party applications that are now available to bring into Microsoft Teams, and that list is growing continually. We then have custom applications. So custom applications is where it gets a little bit more interesting because this is unlimited possibilities. The art of the possible, or how far we can go with it, is just on your imagination. And the custom applications is where we are building our own apps. So we've said, okay, for what we are trying to do in Teams, we're trying to bring in a business process. And the Microsoft apps, there's no app that does it for us. we've looked at third-party apps. There is no third-party app that will do our business process and what we need it to do. So we're going to build our own. And the custom applications, to build your own, you have 3 different options. Option 1 is you build your own application in the Power Platform. That is using Power Apps, Power BI, and Power Automate. And all of those technologies work together to build a business process that you can bring into Teams. For example, you can build, I did forget to mention Power Virtual Agents on there as well, which is something that you can use to build bots. But this is where you build an application, you use something like Power Automate to build the workflow behind that, and then Power BI for the data and reporting. Power Platform is essentially something that you will have in your existing licensing, and depending on how much you actually want to do with the application, you might need additional licensing. So just caveat that is, for most custom applications, you'll probably have the licensing if you're on like an E3. If you need to do something really, really complicated with the technology, you might need additional licensing. So that's something worth checking before you start to build your custom app. Another option that you have is to use app templates. This is one of my favorite ways to bring in applications into Microsoft Teams, because app templates are apps that are essentially created by Microsoft. They create the code, they create the deployment guides, for this application. And you as an IT member essentially add that into Teams. The code's already created, you don't need to do that from scratch. But the difference between an app template and something like a third-party app is that you can customize the app template. You can extend it and customize it. Microsoft will give you the code for these apps. And if you want to do, for example, the company communicator app, you can do that, but then extend it and change it as you go through your custom application. So app templates are a very, very easy way to deploy apps within Teams, and you can customize it, which is great. There's 45 available. They are adding more to that every day as well. The other option that you have is building an application from scratch. And this is using things like Power Virtual Agents, where it is more code heavy, some of it, so just to keep that in mind. But you do have the ability to completely build an application from scratch, build your own code, totally customize it, and bring that directly into Teams. For myself, I'm not a developer, so this is my least favorite way of building applications. But if you do have development skills in your organization, then building from scratch, the possibilities are endless, because you can really go in and customize the entire application process. But that's essentially how we build applications in Microsoft Teams and how we extend it. So we can bring in the third-party apps, and we can build our own apps using these different solutions on the right-hand side. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to show you a mixture of Microsoft apps, third-party and custom apps, and app templates to really show you the differences between them, what they can look like, how to extend them, and so on. So the 5 apps that I've chosen today are a mixture of all of these different app types in Microsoft Teams. So hopefully that's given you a better understanding of the different types of apps in Teams. Let's start looking now at some of the examples of the applications. Now, the first one that I want to show you was the Communicator, or the Company Communicator app. Now, the Company Communicator app is actually an app template. So what we're showing you now is an app template. So this is the type of app I'm going to show to you now. So just to dive in a little bit deeper, what is an app template? So an app template, they are production-ready applications for Microsoft Teams. They're created by an open source community that's available on GitHub. And some of the key benefits of using an app template is it's really a plug-and-play experience. All of the app templates they include the deployment scripts, that you can host all of the necessary services in Azure. There is no coding required to deploy the application. And talking about code, it is production ready code. So it really conforms to the recommended best practices around security and infrastructure. all of the community submitted changes are reviewed to make sure that they, are conforming to all of those security and infrastructure requirements. And they're customizable and extendable. As I mentioned, well, all of the app templates are ready to deploy as they are, which is fine. We could just bring them in straight as. But we get the entire code and the deployment script. So if you want to customize it or extend it to fit your requirements, then you can. And one of the really nice things is the support that you get, the documentation. You get detailed documentation and support. So all of the app templates are accompanied by end-to-end documentation on the solution architecture, deployment, and the configuration steps. And the repositories are all monitored as well, and you can raise any issues or report any issues that you encounter on GitHub as well to get support from that community. I do have the links on there for more information. So when we share these slides, you'll have access to those links to see all of the app templates that you can use. But let's show you what the company communicator app looks like. We're going to do a little bit of a walkthrough now, so I can show you how it works. So the company communicator app, what is it? Well, the company communicator app is a communication tool that we can use to send targeted communication to all of your employees in Microsoft Teams. So typically it sends a one-on-one chat message to your entire organization in Microsoft Teams. You can customize the communication that goes out to all of the users, and you can include images, links, and actually choose specific people in the organization that have the ability to send this communication. So obviously not every single person is going to be able to send a one-on-one chat message to the entire company. But this is a really key product or really key application when it comes to even adoption and change management. If you're trying to announce a tip or trick in Microsoft Teams, what better way to do it than do it through Microsoft Teams? It can be used for company announcements, leadership communications. We've seen it being used for security and compliance communication, a warning about a phishing email or something like that. We can generate surveys and links throughout it as well. And it's just a lot more effective than sending an all company-wide email, clogs up your inboxes, never gets read. Just send it through a one-on-one chat. Everybody will get that ping on their desktop. They can access Teams and they can view that communication there. So it's a very handy tool for communication. As I mentioned, you get the deployment guide, the architecture, documentation, there's an FAQ on there, and there's a guided simulation, which I'm going to go through now, and we'll give you access to that. So here's all of the kind of resources for this specific application. So what we're going to do is give you an example of a visual walkthrough of the Communicator app to show you what it looks like when used in Microsoft Teams. Now, this is an organization that has used and adopted Microsoft Teams, and they want to improve their employee experience, on how people are actually using Teams. So they're going to use the Company Communicator app so they can send communication out to their users about Microsoft Teams and improve their experience. So first of all, what you can see on my screen is on Microsoft Teams, we can add the Company Communicator app as a tab within a channel. And this channel might be part of the communications team, the HR team, the marketing team, whoever it is that you've decided that will use this application. So that application gets added as a tab. And what you will be able to see is that I have a list of sent messages, so I can see what messages have been sent. I can also see, any draft messages that are being sent. So you will assign this role to a specific group of people within the organization. Those are the people that will be able to access this and send communications. What we're going to do now is we're actually going to create a new message. When I create this new message, you'll see that I have the ability to customize it. And what I can see on the right-hand side is a preview of that message. So I can add a title, I can add a link to an image on here, the summary. I can add the author. So who do I want to be sent from? Is it communications team, internal marketing, whatever it may be. The button I can even customize, so I can add a link to a different website. So if you wanted to share a news article from your SharePoint intranet, you could add that link in there so people can click on it and view more. And of course, add the button link in there. When I've created my message, I can then choose how I want to send the message. So I could choose, you'll see some of the options here. I can choose to send it into a specific channel within a team. So I can see here, I can choose the channel for my team. I can choose specific people if I wanted to. I could choose to send it to everyone through a one-on-one chat message. You can also decide to send this to a specific group of people in a chat message. So, excuse me, it's not an all-thing type scenario. You do have the ability to choose who you send this communication to. So you can target different departments and groups if you wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and save that as a draft, and what will happen is I will be able to see it in my drafts now, so the tips and tricks to use Teams. We can have a conversation within my channel and collaborate to decide if it's, you know, a correct draft, if we're approved it, if we're happy with it, and then I can hit send. And what the users will receive is a notification in their activity bar. The message will actually also appear in the communicator, the general channel, so we can see what the message is actually going to look like. And what I could actually decide to do is pin the company notifications or pin the application on the left-hand side as well. You'll see that I do get some information about the application. So I do have the ability to see if when it was sent, if it was successful, if it throttled, if there's bounce backs, and so on. If somebody's out of office or they've left the company, I will get some of that information as well, and some reporting on it. So the Communicator app this is as is the app template. We can add it as a tab in a team. We can add it as an app on the left-hand side of our Teams client, and we can use that to send those communications. And that's how it just comes as a package. If you wanted to, you could decide to extend that with the code that you're provided by GitHub. To kind of do different things with it. If you wanted more reporting, if you wanted to be able to do different things with the communication, then you can definitely extend that. But that's an example of an app template that is already pre-built for you. This is built, you just have to deploy it to your organization to be able to start using it. And so I'd say definitely look at this one. If you're trying to get rid of company-wide emails, this is a tool for you. Okay, so I'm just conscious of the time. Let's move on to our next application. The next application I wanted to talk about is a third-party application. So remember, we had first-party Microsoft 365 apps. I'm moving on to third-party apps now. This is called Decisions. It does come at an additional cost, so it's not included in your licensing. There is a free trial available, but just be aware of that. There is an additional cost if you did want to implement it into your organization. Now, Decisions is an application that is designed for meeting agendas. So in terms of improving the Teams meeting experience, it's a really great application. In Decisions, I can create and manage meeting agendas. So I can kind of say, okay, we've got a meeting that lasts for 1 hour, and I can put an agenda for the first 5 minutes, for the next 20 minutes, for the next 30 minutes, and I can assign presenters to those agenda points to prepare for the meeting and make sure it's as productive as possible. I think we've all been in that position where we have a meeting for the sake of having a meeting. This is a tool that can really make them a bit more productive. You can integrate with Planner, Tasks by Planner from Microsoft 365. We can assign tasks, we can take minutes, we can add different links, documents in there if I need to. Everything is essentially in one place with the Decisions application. And I want to show you an example of it. So now I'm actually going to move to a live demo. So you will be able to see the Decisions app. Now, the Decisions app can be added as a tab in a channel. So right now, you can see that I am in my Mark 8 project team, and I'm in the general channel. What I've done here is I've actually added the Decisions app as a tab at the top, and it's called Meetings. Now, the way that I've done that is I've just clicked add a tab, and I've just searched for decisions, and it's popped up there. That's all I've done to add that as a tab. Now, any user is able to do this, but they will need permission to add this app, to add it and start charging the organization. You don't have to worry about that. They can try to add it, but they will be asked to provide a justification and a reason why. And an admin has to approve that before it can be added, because it's an app that you have to pay for. So users can try and do it themselves, but you will need to approve this before they do. So meetings, I'm in my meetings tab. Now, because I'm in a channel, I can see all of the meetings that I have that are related to this channel. So I can see I've got a company all hands meeting, a website review. All of these meetings have been created from the team and the channel. And I can see the different channels here. I can see market, project team, design, go to market. So these are all the different channels, but it's bringing me everything to do with that team in one place. So these are all my meetings, and what Decisions is essentially doing is saying, here's all your upcoming meetings. Do you want to put an agenda and a bit of a reason of why we're doing this meeting? Do you want to make it a bit more organized? So from here, I could choose one of the meetings. Let's choose this company all hands, and I'm going to go ahead and add an agenda to this meeting that we have that's existing. So I can see it's today at 1 p.m. to 1:30. I could even choose to join it from here if I wanted to. But when I scroll down, it's asking me to add an agenda. So I can first of all choose the time. So I can say in the first 5 minutes, let's do introductions. And I can say introduce the team and new members. And I can put my agenda points in there. Of course, you can see I can format that. I can add tables, bullet points, links, images. I can really make this fancy if I wanted to. And I'm not going to do that now because of time. But you can kind of customize that. But this is our first agenda point. Then I can say, okay, who's the presenter? Who's going to present, and lead this meeting? I can go ahead and add that presenter on the right-hand side. I can see who is attending the meeting. And I'm going to choose Megan. So Megan, you are going to be presenting the instructions piece. I can choose to add a file. I can add a link to a SharePoint site, another team. I could upload a file from my OneDrive, and I could choose to tag it. So I could say, okay, is this an agenda point for decision making? Do we need to make a decision around it? Is it just discussion, or is it just for information? I'm going to tag that as just for information. So in the first 5 minutes, we're going to run through our instructions. I'm going to hit save, and that's going to take me from 1 p.m. till 1:05. Now I need to add more points to this agenda, so I will add another one. So now it's starting the time from 1:05 because I've got my instructions, and then we'll spend the next 10 minutes, say, going through the presentations or whatever it is that we want to do. And the same sort of thing happens here. I can add my presenter, I can add my files in there, I can add my tags, and I can hit save. And that's creating that agenda for me. So I've got a few kind of different points in there, things that we need to cover in the allotted time. You'll see at the top right, I have some buttons on here, so I can add tasks. So this, if I click on this, it's actually going to add an existing planner from the team. So I can choose to add my tasks from Planner. I can assign tasks to my users. So it's all integrating into one. I can say, okay, how many decisions do we need to make? I can add notes. So this can link to either OneNote or a Word document. You can add minutes in here as well. Again, you can add a Word document or OneNote, and you can customize it. I can add buttons. So I can say, if we need a certain website link, let's make it a red button. Let's add the link in here. www.core.co.uk. I can hit save, and that's going to add that link for my users to go in, and they can click on it and they can see the link. So I can really customize my agenda if I wanted to. And when I go into my meeting, in Microsoft Teams, I will see a meetings tab in my meeting, and I will see the agenda that I've just created. So I can add it as a tab within a channel. You can also do this with ad hoc meetings. It doesn't have to be a meeting from a channel that you do this. I can go into my calendar, and I've got an ad hoc meeting that I've created here. And what I could decide to do is I could decide to add the Decisions app as a tab into my meeting. So this is a meeting that is not a channel, not related to a channel, but I still have the ability to go in. I've got agenda in here, and I've got the Decisions app, and I've still got, an agenda that I've created, and I can add my agenda in here, create presenters, and you'll see it's giving me a timeline of what point we're actually at within the meeting. So we've done the project plan, we need to review these issues, and so on. So Decisions is a really great application to help you manage your productivity when it comes to meetings within Microsoft Teams. And if you have a recurring meeting, it's going to save the agendas for the recurring meetings. So you'll be able to see past agendas, and then you can create new agendas as well. So Decisions is definitely a really great application to take a look at to improve productivity within Teams meetings. Check it out on the App Store within Microsoft Teams. Bear in mind of the cost. I'll need to double check the cost for you. It's a subscription, but it's definitely worth checking out the free trial to see if it would be of value to your organization. So, Decisions. I wanted to run through another application called Microsoft Forms. Now, Microsoft Forms is a first-party application. It comes as part of Microsoft 365. It is not an additional cost. So if you have Office 365 E1, A1, E3, A3, then you will have this tool. It's called Microsoft Forms. And some of you may be familiar with Microsoft Forms. It is a survey and quiz tool. You have it on Office 365. You can create quizzes, surveys, polls, and it integrates really, really nicely into Microsoft Teams. You can see some screenshots that I have on here. I have, I can add my surveys as a tab within a channel. But the example I really wanted to show you today is the ability to integrate it into a Teams meeting as the Teams meeting is actually happening. So what I'm going to do is just show you what that looks like. I'm actually going to take a little risk now and go to my actual Teams, live Teams environment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a meeting. So I've got a Teams meeting that I have created. It's not to do with a channel, it's just an ad hoc Teams meeting. Now, what I can do in a Teams meeting is I can actually create a poll. So if I want to ask my audience in the Teams meeting, how did you find this meeting? Maybe you want to agree on a certain date or time, you're trying to schedule in a follow-up. Forms can be really, really useful for that. So what I'm going to do is, if you wanted to add a poll to a meeting, all you have to do is click on the plus button when you're in the meeting in your calendar. And just search for forms and it'll pop up here. I've actually already done this, so I'm not going to click on this now, but when you add it, it will appear as a polls tab in your meeting. Now in my polls tab, I can see that I actually already have a poll that has been created, and I've said, how did you find this meeting? Good, fair, or poor? I can go in here and create a new poll. And I could choose from a multiple choice. I could do a quiz if I wanted to. I could add text responses if I wanted to get feedback. And you'll see I've got some suggestions. I can see, how are you feeling today? If I wanted to ask that, what time do you want to set up the meeting for, and so on. So let me choose, how are you feeling today, just because it's already suggested it. And because I've clicked on it, it's already given me my choices in here. I can change these, I can delete some if I wanted to. I can add some, it'll give me more suggestions. You can totally customize this. Annoyed, there we go, we'll just put that in there to show you that you can customize it. Add options. I can include multiple answers if I want to. I can choose to keep them anonymous. Now, what that means is it will be anonymous for you as the person that's created the poll. For everyone else in the meeting, it's always anonymous. No one else will be able to see anybody else's responses, even if you haven't clicked on this. What this means is it basically will not show you who has actually submitted the answer. So if you did want to keep it totally anonymous so you can't see it, then click on this. But either way, it's still anonymous for the rest of the team. Now what you'll see is this poll is a draft, and I need to actually choose to launch this poll before my users can actually go in and do the poll. So what I'm going to show you is when I join this meeting. So let's join this Microsoft Teams meeting. So we're in this meeting. At any point, I can go in and I can create that poll. I can do it before the meeting, like I've done here. I can go in and create a poll quite easily during the meeting, and I can even do it after the meeting if I wanted to. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to launch this poll, and as soon as I launch the poll, the first thing that's happened is that I now have the Forms bot or the Forms app that has appeared for me, so I can go in and I can answer the question that has been asked. So that's what the launch button is for. When it's in a draft, it's not going to activate the poll. When I hit launch, it's actually appeared for me here as a user. So anybody in this meeting will see this pop up. I can say, okay, I'm good. I can submit that and I can see the results. And that's directly within the Teams meeting. I can choose to click on the Forms button within the meeting, and I can see a history of questions that have been asked in this meeting. And I can go in and I can, if I forget to do it when it pops up, I can still go in and I can say, okay, great, and submit it. So Forms is a great tool to integrate not just within a team and a channel, but within your meetings to help get feedback, to schedule other meetings, dates, times. The kind of possibility is endless. And it's a free application. It's something that is included in your licensing. So I would say it's definitely worth checking out. Just a lot of people aren't aware that you can add it into a meeting. I'm going to hit leave, and I'm just going to show you how to actually do the poll after the meeting. So if I was to create a new poll, so I've finished the meeting, let's do the multiple choice again. Let's just do question this time. And if everybody's left the meeting, but you still want to get a response from people, when you hit launch, it's actually going to appear in that person's chat for the meeting. So they'll receive a notification, it should pop up shortly, where they can go in and they can actually answer the poll. So they'll be able to see it in their chat and the chat history, even after they've left the meeting. So some really, really great things that we can do with Forms. Channels, we can use the Forms app on its own to create surveys, and we can use it within meetings as well. And that's just an example of a first-party app and how powerful that can be as well to extend the capability and improve productivity within teams. We're getting there with the applications. I've got a couple more to look at before we finish. The next application is Tasks by Planner. Now, this is an application that is already built within Microsoft 365. So it's a first-party application. But I wanted to show you something we can do to extend this first-party application. So a lot of you might already be using Planner. It's a task management tool within Office 365. I can add Planner as a tab in a channel. I can create and manage tasks. It will automatically chase my colleagues to complete the tasks, and I can do that all through Microsoft Teams. So let me just quickly show you before I show you how we can extend it. For those who maybe haven't used Planner before, in my team, you can see I'm in my general channel and I have a tab at the top called Project Plan. This is a planner that I've created, and I have buckets of to-do lists, and I can add tasks in here. Do this task. I can set due dates on the task, and I can assign it to different users within my team. The users that you've assigned this to will receive a notification, and they can go in and they can complete the task. You can extend it if you want to. You can kind of open this up and add a labeling system if you're very organized. You can obviously edit the label name, meetings, or whatever you want to call it. You can add links, checklists, comments, attachments. You can kind of really go in and customize these to-do lists. And once it's completed, I can go in and hit the complete button, and that will mark it as complete. But what we can do to extend this, now we can use something called adaptive cards, which uses the Power Platform technology. So adaptive cards, what are adaptive cards? So adaptive cards are ways to show or format information directly into a Microsoft team in a much more cleaner and formatted way for the user. So you can see some examples on my screen. I've got an adaptive card, which is posting news from an intranet. So this is what the card looks like. It's as soon as somebody adds a news article into SharePoint, it's going to post this card with all the information about the news article and a link to it into the team. I've got task management. When a task is created, pop this card into the channel so people can go in and they can add notes or they can complete the task. There's input forms, so we can ask questions and get feedback from our employees if we want to, using this type of adaptive card. Now, adaptive cards, to be honest, are their own. You could do a whole presentation on adaptive cards. But the key thing I wanted to point out is that you can use adaptive cards. It doesn't cost any extra. You can use it within task management. So this is the one we're going to focus on now. And we can use what's called Power Automate to help us create this adaptive card. So I'll tell you what, I'm just going to show you. It might make a little bit more sense when I show you what I mean. As an organization, what I want to do is every time there is a change in one of these tasks, if something's been completed, I want you to post that to the channel. I want you to tell people in the channel that this has been completed, this task has been completed. I want people to be informed of it. So I want to create an adaptive card that will send a little card into my channel to say, yep, we've completed this task. So what I can do there is I can actually use Power Automate. Now, Power Automate, if I open it up now, is again a workflow tool that is created, or you have access to it within your licensing, and it basically creates workflows between different applications. So you can see some examples here. You can automatically save email attachments to OneDrive. You can automatically get a notification when your manager posts something or emails you. There's a huge amount of things that you can do with it, and it can connect to third-party apps as well as first-party apps. So Power Automate is a workflow tool in Microsoft 365. And what I've done is I've created a workflow. So I'm just going to have a look at my flows. I've created a workflow that says post an adaptive card whenever a task is changed to completed. So I've created this workflow. If I just click on edit, I'm just going to show you quickly what it looks like. So when a task is completed in this team, so I've chosen the specific team, get the information from that planner and post the adaptive card. So what I've done here is that this is automatically created for you. So you don't actually need to write any of this code or anything like that. As soon as you choose this workflow, it will automatically fill this information in for you. So it's basically saying, okay, here's what we're going to send. This is the adaptive card in the code. That's what we're going to send into the team. So I've created that, and the way that I've created that is I've just used templates. So within Power Automate, you do have lots of templates to start from, which builds the app for you. So in here you can see, send an email for any different tweets or whatever it may be. And when you click on one of the templates, it creates it for you. You just have to log in. Once you log in, it will create that workflow for you. So that's all I've done for the task management kind of adaptive card. One thing I would just say is search adaptive cards. Just search for adaptive cards in here, and then you'll see the workflow pop up for you. So in I've actually completed some of these tasks now. So what should happen, because I created this extension of adaptive cards to Planner, I should actually now, when I go into post, I should see an update, which I can. So I can see here that something has been completed. The title was do this task, which is the one I just created. It's created by this person, and I can click to view the task, and that will take me to Planner, where I can go in and I can see it. So I guess my point with this example is we can use the first-party applications that we get, so something as simple as Planner or Forms or something else, but we can use the technology to extend it. We can use Power Platform to extend those first-party applications to do what we need it to do. So all of these different kind of use cases of sharing information, of updating things, of being productive in meetings, You know, all the technology works to support as many different use cases as we can really think of. So when we're extending the capability of Teams, you know, we're using the technology that's already provided to help us. So if you do have a challenge that you're facing in the organization, the chances are it can be extended and built into a process within Teams to improve collaboration and productivity. But that's just a little sneak peek of adaptive cards and some of the capability of Power Automate and how we can extend applications. The last one I wanted to touch on is, before we finish for questions, is a bot. Now the bots, I mentioned, the bots can be totally customized. So you can build your own bot within Microsoft Teams. If you needed, for example, a self-service or a self-service ticket resolution system. So you wanted people to go into Teams and use a bot to hire more equipment or change their passwords or, you know, whatever it may be. You can create that within Microsoft Teams. There are partners who create them for you and you can buy them, or you can create your own, which again does require a little bit more coding and development work. Or you could use an app template that is a bot. So what you can see on my screen, I've got HR support. This is going to be an example of an app template. So it's provided on GitHub. You'll have the deployment guide, the script, the code, and so on. But it's a bot. It's not an application, you would say. So a HR bot, now this is one that you can get from GitHub. So there's a HR bot, there's an FAQ bot. These are bots that you can bring into Teams so your users can directly go into their chat and they can ask the bot questions. And the HR bot that we have here is just a Q&A bot. And it just brings in a bit of, you know, professional support to users from the HR team. And it just loops the HR team in when, you know, the bot can't answer a simple question that the user might be asking. So the user basically can ask the bot a question and the bot will respond with an answer if it contains the knowledge base for that answer. So it'll have predefined answers. If somebody says, how can I update my address? That's something that the bot will be able to help with. It will send a link to the HR portal where the user can go in and they can change their address details. If the bot cannot answer any of the questions, it will send a notification to the HR team, so the HR team can then get in contact with that person. So it will bring in a human when it needs to. Additionally, the bot will suggest links to HR policies or FAQs that have been, you know, pre-configured. And what you can really do, it's kind of pre-built for you, but as I mentioned with the other app templates, you can totally customize it and extend it. You can choose your own questions, your own answers. You know, you can decide what the bot does and when it does it by kind of extending and customizing the code. Again, you will have the deployment guide, the architecture and documentation, all of that available to you to deploy it in your organization. But this is what it looks like. So in here, I have HR support and I can ask it questions. So I'm asking a question, are there any other options to set up my salary than a direct deposit? And the bot's coming back with some information. It says, you know, here's some of the information that I've got, here's what I found. I can choose to share feedback. So I can say to the creators, you know, this hasn't helped me or it has. I can send another question. You'll see up here, it sent me an article. I can view the article. So it's basically, you know, answering some friendly questions for me as an end user. Now, on the other side of that, on the HR team will basically see all of the questions that are coming through to the bot. So I can see I've got it as a tab and a channel for my HR team, and I can see a question. I can see Alex Smith is requesting support. I can choose to chat with Alex. I can open up the tickets. You can see the question, can I use additional flex points? And the bot will essentially post these notifications to make the team aware of what's being asked, but also highlight it, you know, and assign it to someone else if it cannot answer the question for the user. So it's a really great way for the user to go and ask the questions and for the HR team to manage that. And that's just a very basic example of a bot. We can go very, very comprehensive with this. We can make it a very kind of powerful bot that can work with raising tickets, requesting new equipment. We can add images, videos. You can really go in and customize this to and bend it to your requirements when you need to. But this is just an example of using a bot as well as applications. So we can think really, really outside of the box, not just with third-party apps. We can go a step further and even include bots in that as well. And I think I have finished just in time for the last 10 minutes for questions. So what we've kind of covered today are Teams apps. Teams is a platform, the 5 applications. So we have the Communicator app, Decisions, Microsoft Forms for polling. We have the HR support bots, and we've got extending Planner with adaptive cards. These are just hopefully a little taste of the capabilities within Teams and really how it can solve business challenges and improve collaboration when you're using it. So I hope you found it useful. Thank you so much for listening. There was quite a lot of information in there. There's lots of links, so we'll see if we can make sure we share the slides to get access to those. But I'll pause now if there are any questions from the audience. Thank you.
Hey Kat, great presentation. There's just been actually a few compliments coming in really. People were saying it's a top presentation and people were requesting the slide deck as well, so that's great you're willing to share it. So if you could send that to me later and I'll send it out with the webinar recording to everyone. Then just one person said, what would you say is the app you can't live without?
Oh, that's a very good question. Oh goodness me. I'd probably say I use Forms the most, believe it or not, out of all of those ones, I would say. There is an app that I mentioned that I do use quite heavily as well, which is OneNote. So they're not as funky as some of these third-party ones. But those two I would say I use more so, and maybe Planner as well. So all the first-party ones do a good enough job for me to keep using those. That's such a good question.
Then one person asked, is it possible to change the buttons in an approval adaptive cards?
Yes, definitely. So there are a few different ways to create adaptive cards. If you Google adaptive card designer, you will be able to completely design from scratch an adaptive card. You do not really necessarily need to type in any code or anything. It's really a drag and drop. But just search for adaptive card designer and you'll be able to see how much you can customize with it. So yes, totally customizable, all of those cards.
I think that's all that's coming in at the moment, unless anyone else out there has any more questions or if you have anything else you would like to mention.
No, that's all good. I just say thank you so much for joining and listening. And yes, it's a really big topic, so lots of information. But yeah, go and have fun now looking at all the 800 apps that you'll that you'll have access to. But yeah, those are just my 5. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to stay on if there are any more questions. But yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Just a few more compliments again coming in, just saying great presentation. So it's gone down really well.
Good.
And there's no more now. Oh, maybe there's another one there. Oh, just loads of thank yous. Very popular today. It's gone down well.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep, that's loads of positive feedback. So I'd say you're off the hook, Cash. They're happy enough.
Wonderful.
Okay, so just as well for myself, thanks so much for joining us this morning, and it was great to have such a good webinar kicking off on Microsoft Teams Week.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
So everyone else can enjoy your day. Thanks again to Cash. And then if anyone wants to chance their luck at winning an Amazon voucher from Beam, be sure to scan the QR code and enter the competition. Be perfect timing before Christmas. So thanks to everyone joining us today. Thanks again to Cash and have a great day. Bye.